Hey everybody, I'm Rhett. You're watching VGC Best of 3, and unfortunately, this week's VBA match, I had a little problem with the video, so I don't have the original video that I made. What I do have is Popo was nice enough to send me his side of the battle that he recorded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do post commentary over his side of the battle, talking through the decisions that we made and where I think decisions could have been made better, specifically in my play. And hopefully this will be fun and instructive for everybody. So thanks for watching, and please take a moment to check out his channel, like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and check out our next week's opponent, who will be linked down in the description as well. Hopefully we're going to have another really good battle next week. All right, guys, so we're leading off with Drifblim and Tapu Fini. We're going for the Misty Seed Unburden combination. He leads off with Galarian Moltres and Kartana. So this is a decent lead matchup for us. We're not too worried about his Kartana. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for an Icy Wind to break whatever sash he might have. And at the same time, we're going for a Max Blizzard, a Max Hailstorm into the Kartana, get rid of it right away. He maxes his Moltres. Now, we're finding out here whether or not his Moltres is weakness policy. This is important information that we need for the rest of the set. So our Fini maxes. By the way, at this point in the back, we've got Zapdos, and we have Galarian Mr. Mime, who is Choice Scarfed. That's going to be important. So we get the speed drop on both, and he triggers his weakness policy on Moltres, which is not great. But we do get the KO on Kartana. And at least this way, we know that he's weakness policy, and we can use that information in games 2 and 3. He gets a nice max airstream off. This puts him back at neutral speed. And everybody takes a little bit of chip from the hail. He brings out the Nidoqueen. So we go for a max guard here to try and preserve Fini. And we land another Icy Wind, dropping speed on both the Moltres and the Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen moves first here, which tells us that it's faster than Moltres, and so it's got to be Scarfed. Drifblim goes down, which is not too surprising. It was on borrowed time in front of +2 Moltres anyway. We take a little more chip from the hail. And we send out our Mr. Mime. So he switches Nidoqueen out into Raichu. And we get our Blizzard off with Mr. Mime. We follow it up with a Starfall into the Moltres. And we get the KO. So at this point, we're feeling pretty good. We're definitely up. We're up on one Pokemon, and Scarf Blizzard is going to do a lot to everything he's got. We know it's going to be enough to KO Raichu because it did more than half last time. And he goes for the Fake Out. Gets the Sludge Bomb KO on Feeny. And at this point, we just go for Blizzard and Heat Wave. It doesn't really matter because the Blizzard's enough to pick up the KO on both. So that's game one in our favor. And so we go into game two. So we go for the same 4 this time. It worked out pretty well the first time, so we're happy to lead with it again. So our play here is another Icy Wind and Blizzard. We know that unless the Naganadel maxes, this is a guaranteed KO. We're willing to accept Aurora Veil going up. 1, because there's not much we can do about it, but 2, because we've got Screen Cleaner in the back. Crit on Lapras doesn't matter, of course. Speed drops do, because that's going to allow Feeny to outspeed Naganadel, and we land the Hailstorm, taking it off the board. We really needed that. Naganadel is a big threat. But now, our Drifblim is going to take the Resonance. We knew we could take 1. So here, I think the correct play would be to Tailwind. Make sure that we have speed advantage continuing forward. But I don't think that's what we do. I think instead we go for the Icy Wind again and Starfall into the Raichu. Now, it barely survives, which means that it's Assault Vest. Does a good chunk, and another max resonance is enough to take out Drifblim. Raichu goes down. And I think at this point, if we target into the Moltres and give it Berserk, that's definitely a mistake. Because now we take the damage from both of them. Outspeed Feeny. So Moltres comes in, and we send in Mr. Mime, which clears away the Aurora Veil. Now, the big question here is whether or not he protects the Moltres in the hopes that we'll proc his weakness policy. So I think the correct move here would be to Blizzard with Mr. Mime, which we do. And then max Overgrow into the Lapras from Feeny. And that is what we do. Get some decent damage down. And at this point, if he resets screens, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage. So instead he goes for the Max Geyser, and that is enough to take out Mr. Mime. So now we're in a bit of a rough spot because we don't have the speed advantage. We send out Zapdos. And what we're hoping for here is that he will not want, but that's not the play we make. We go for the Ice Wind. We'll go for a Freeze Dry onto Zapdos in the hopes of getting the KO with the super effective attack. But what he doesn't know is that our Zapdos is Yachi Berry. Now again, if we had Tailwinded earlier, we would now be outspeeding the Moltres with our Feeny. And unfortunately, that matters here because Feeny goes down. He also gets a crit. I don't think the crit was what mattered. And even if it did, we opened ourselves up to it by not Tailwinding. So Tailwind is really the play that we needed to make to give ourselves a chance to win this game too. We go for the Thunderbolt into Moltres, take out the KO. Moltres goes down. Lapras hits the Hydro Pump, and because it's so strong, we go down. So there was an opening here for him to play into our strategy by going for freeze dry instead of hydro pump, but he didn't take it, and as a result, we don't luck into a win there. So going into game 3, I think I really needed to be reconsidering the value of Zapdos here. Zapdos hasn't actually done a ton for us in the last couple games. It didn't come out at all in game 1 when we won, and it did come out in game 2, but it wasn't enough to put us in a position to actually win. Although, again, if we had played Drifblim correctly, I think we would have been in a position to take it. So then I think wheezing or Snorlax would be the right adaptation here. But at the time, my thinking is, well, that was really close. If a couple things break differently, I probably take it. So after a lot of thinking, I decided to go with the same 4. So we go for the same 4 this time. It worked out pretty well the first time, so we're happy to lead with it again. So here he leads Moltres and Kartana. And one of our problems here is that we still don't know what the item on Kartana is. We know it's not Assault Vest, but we don't know for sure that it's Focus Sash, but we're assuming that it is. And that's why we go for the Icy Wind play here, even though we know it's going to trigger Moltres' weakness policy. And that's probably a mistake. I think the correct play here would be to Tailwind. But of course, then we take a lot of damage on Feeny, so it's a question of where we want to take the damage. But having persistent speed control, I think, would make up for the damage that we take on Feeny. As long as it's not Choice Band Kartana, we should be able to soak one Leaf Blade relatively well. We really needed to take a KO there. It might have been okay letting him get the weakness policy boost on Moltres if it allowed us to KO Kartana. But now we're in a terrible position because Kartana outspeeds everything on our side and Moltres is boosted. So we make the mistake here. We really think about our options here. We think about a heat wave and a starfall, but we end up going with a thunderbolt, which is clearly a mistake because he makes the decision to switch in the Raichu. So that was a big mistake. And now we go for the hailstorm into the Kartana, which brings the Raichu low, but not low enough. And if we had gone with our stab, I think it probably would have picked up the KO there. Or we could have hit into the Moltres and taken the Moltres out. So that turn was a terrible turn, a huge, huge misplay. So we've made 2 huge misplays in a row here. And there's really just, it's such a difficult path back from here. But we send in Mr. Mime knowing that we outspeed everything he's got. But the problem is that he's got enough Pokemon to switch around with that he's able to switch the Raichu out and keep it around on 3 HP. So Kartana comes back in, Blizzard KOs both, and really if we just had one more Pokemon, it doesn't matter how much HP it's at, we would have been okay. So the fact that we let ourselves be behind on KOs for as long as we did really, really mattered here. Because now he brings in Naganadel and Raichu, and he's got an easy win condition of faking out our Mr. Mime and Sludge Waving. So really, every step of the way, he was outplaying us in this game 3. I think of all of the games, it was the one where we were least in control and making the most mistakes. I think 1 or 2 plays different in game 2, we could have taken it. Game 3, he had our number every turn. So I think the takeaway is the early Tailwind to avoid triggering the weakness policy, take out or stick with the early Tailwind to avoid activating weakness policy, target into Kartana to take it out. Then we could, when we bring in the Zapdos, we needed to avoid the electric type attack so that we can manage to get some damage down that turn. And then we can, once the Raichu is gone, then we can start targeting down the Moltres once its max is over and it's a little bit weaker. Plus that would let us bring in Mr. Mime to clean up the Naganadel as well. So really good games to Popo, really well done. Sadly, we just didn't get there this time. But I'm looking forward to next week. We're up against Joe's Crab Shack and the Corpus Christi Crabbies. And I'm really excited for that match because we played Joe in Season 0 and we lost. And I'm looking for some retribution on that. So, guys, thanks for watching. Big thank you to Popo for letting us use his video footage here. And I'll see you guys next week.